Joining us today in the studio is gynecologist Dr. Peter Wood from the Sydney Adventist Hospital. Thank you, Peter, for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
You know, I was thinking, you must get some really interesting questions at dinner parties. You know, everyone hears... Everyone hears about someone else's profession and they always try to get a bit of free professional advice. So what's the most interesting dinner party question you've gotten?
Well, what people at dinner parties really want to know is gory stories.
While you're eating, of course.
The nitty-gritty of what happened there, what happened here, and having worked for about 10 years in the emergency department and then now working as a gynaecologist, often the two crossed lines, and there were some very interesting stories, which I don't know if I can talk about right now.
So you're very popular at dinner parties.
Oh, man, very popular, and it's quite embarrassing how popular. Everyone just shuts up, and I go, why do you all go quiet?
Well, hopefully we can get some of that, you know, nitty-gritty from you today.
Okay.
We want to talk about making healthy babies.
Sure.
And this is something that's on lots of mothers' minds. It's not just about making that first baby, but maybe that second or third baby, making sure that it's healthy as well. And we know that there's a lot of, as we talked about in the nutrition segment, there's a lot of what we're eating that has an impact on that. Can you maybe just give us an overview about, you know, the things that we're eating that impact making a healthy baby?
Well, a good diet is always important, and a bad diet would consist of things like Coke and chocolates and stuff, all the stuff that I used to refer to as vitamin CH chocolate, you know. A little bit of chocolate is okay, but, you know, excessive amounts. And so there's this differentiation in the dietary world, like in the nutritional world, about high GI and low GI food. Low GI means that as you eat it, it takes a long time for the sugars to get into your circulation, so you don't put your sugar level up high. That's the sort of stuff that you should be eating when you're pregnant. That usually like fresh vegetables, brown rice, and things that are bad, believe it or not, are things like fruit juice. You know, fruit juice you think is being healthy. Oh, look, it's a glass of orange juice, or it's a glass of apple juice. Apple juice just cracks me up how it's promoted as healthy. When there's like 6 apples worth of sugar in that one glass. It's just hideous.
Wow.
So,
Well,
when you're pregnant,
Well, you mentioned this vitamin CH, but I know that vitamin D is actually quite important for us to be consuming. Why is that?
Well, okay, so vitamin D is intimately related to the absorption of calcium. And in our society, for some reason in Australia, you'd think with all the sun around that we'd be vitamin D rich, but we've been heavily pumped with the don't get sunburnt, slip, slop, slap, which is important to not have you know, risks of skin cancer, but it's now made us all a bit vitamin D deficient. So it's a tremendously successful campaign from one point of view. So vitamin D is important for the absorption of calcium, and the calcium is important for the woman's health, for her bone density, because the baby will suck all this stuff out of your body, particularly when you're breastfeeding in the last day. So your bones will become less and less, will get demineralised, particularly during breastfeeding. And so it's important to have adequate amounts of calcium in your diet, and often you need vitamin D. So it's a very simple test at the beginning of the pregnancy that your GP or whoever's looking after you can do. And if you're low in vitamin D, then it's a simple tablet to take. And often you can take vitamin D and calcium together. There's lots of preparation for them both together. It's just one a day and it's perfect.
So women are supposed to be taking the folate and the vitamin D. Can they over-supplement? Like, can you do yourself any damage in that?
Look, I think everything in moderation is appropriate. You know, like I think if you took too much, it probably wouldn't be a good idea. But you know what the actual instructions on the bottles, each one has a slightly different, you know, dosage or whatever. But what they're recommending would be okay. Certain things like magnesium, probably can't take too much of that. I mean, because you tend to just pee it out in your kidneys. I said that P word. We weren't going to talk about P, were we? No, we weren't. But yes, that's magnesium. Whereas things like folic acid, there is the standard recommended dose for normal women is 0.5 milligram a day. But if you've got a family history of things like spina bifida, or if you've previously had a baby with spina bifida or any sort of neural tube defects, the neural tube is basically the whole nervous system gets formed in the first few weeks of pregnancy, like often before you've actually worked out your pregnancy.
Yeah, I was going to say for a few of us, that's
And so ideally you should be having the folic acid in your diet, or folic, same thing, in the diet prior to conception, which is why we always say if you're thinking of conceiving, get stuck into the folate. But so if you've had a previous history, we recommend 5 milligrams rather than than 500 milligrams, sorry, 5 milligrams rather than 500 micrograms. So it's like 10 times the amount. So you can't really overdose on folate, right? And look, if you speak to the people who work at the institutions where kids who've got spina bifida are, they say, why doesn't everyone just take 5 milligrams? Which makes sense, because well, if you had one of you taking half a milligram and you end up with a baby with spina bifida, you're going to take 5 milligrams next time. Makes sense to maybe just take it all the time.
You know, we often think about the woman's health. Does the man have any part to play in, you know, his sperm quality or what he's doing with his body and having a healthy baby?
Well, I mean, men just sort of contribute one part of the pregnancy very early on, as you know.
It's kind of important.
It is important. But if a man is, for instance, unwell, like has a really bad case of the flu or has, you know, is unwell, that will actually affect sperm quality for about 3 to 4 months. So it's not uncommon if they're trying to conceive and he's had the flu ages ago, or he's, you know, so things like that can affect the man.
Does his diet affect?
What?
Because that's a bit of a thing going around at the moment,
Yes.
isn't
Bit of
it?
a
That the
thing.
man's
I've read
got to
a
be
lot
healthy.
about that.
He's
Yeah,
got to wear the right underwear,
Yep.
and he's got to be healthy.
And take vitamins.
And take vitamins.
So there are some preparations out there intended to improve sperm quality.
Right.
And I'd suggest that if you are healthy and otherwise well, you probably don't need those preparations. There are, if you've had a sperm count and it shows you've got poor motility or you've got poor numbers, then maybe those preparations may be, but there may be other lifestyle
Yeah.
factors. So I'm a bit dubious about some of the marketing of these things, because people feel a bit vulnerable when they're trying to conceive and they want the best, and so therefore advertising agencies come in here and plug stuff that maybe the evidence is a bit dubious for. So.
Speaking of wanting the best and being prepared, genetic testing. Now, when do you recommend getting that? Do you I assume you recommend it, but like at what stage should you be doing that?
Can you give us quickly your answer to this one?
Okay, right, quickly. Okay, so you can have a test at between 10 and 12 weeks, or any time after 10 weeks, called a non-invasive prenatal test. It's a blood test taken from the mum, and that will only give you an answer as to whether your baby is at risk of Down syndrome or a couple other issues. That test doesn't tell you if your baby's got 4 heads and 6 arms, right? It only tells you if you've got a risk of Down syndrome.
Sure.
There's another test at 12 weeks called the nuchal translucency scan. That is also very important. It shows that not only does it show you a risk of Down syndrome as well.
Well, Peter, I want to thank you so much for coming and visiting us today. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, ladies, for being here with us today on the table. If you'd like to have your say and you'd like to keep up with us on our social media accounts, we look forward to seeing you in the next time. Bye for now, and we look forward to being with you in community online.